How did you decide that you wanted to be a journalist? What made you realize that? Because you literally lived in that field for 33 years. So,
This is Sonia Verma in Srinagar for the world this week. See, that's a popular about saying Prime Minister flies to Chief Justice of the Sena now. Indian newspapers, boy wonder, it's kind of and money. But despite its dismal performance, ushering in a cleaner in the UAE, our response with steel on privatizing to. Good evening and welcome to the 9 o'clock news. I'm Sonia Singh.
and ma'am, do you agree that journalists are the face of the ruling party eventually?
You know, I think the core of journalism is to be anti.
I think social media has really helped journalists.
The more viewers watch this rubbish, the more they'll get of it. So I think if viewers are more discerning, you'll find the television will also automatically change.
It must have been a battle, no ma'am? Getting the news first, getting the news out first.
Well, you know, I think that at NDTV our focus was you have to get the news first.
But ma'am, when journalists like Rajiv Pratap lose their lives because of true journalism, what do you have to say on that?
No, it's absolutely.
And ma'am, when we talk about Jessica Lal case, I also interviewed Malini Ramani. She was an eyewitness to the murder. And ma'am, your life has been very glamorous, but it also has some moments that felt like thrillers.
Gosh, that happens all the time. Well, I guess the one that you're maybe talking about is, you know, the Jessica Lal episode. And that was just the beginning of that 24/7 television. So it was crazy that, you know, to be on the news every single day for 2 years. You know, a lot of people got scared and said that they didn't know anything at all. And so when I was called in, I saw the guy. I identified him.
Why do you think he still got away when, like, we all know the truth?
Well, in a sense,
Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you today?
very well. Thank you, Smriti.
Thank you so much for saying yes to me. It really means a lot. I'm so thrilled to speak to you today and interview you about your journey.
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say. But I was also in my 20s once starting off. So I'm always happy to speak to young people.
Very kind of you, ma'am. So, ma'am, let's begin from the beginning. How did you decide that you wanted to be a journalist? What made you realize that?
I think when we were younger, it was, we didn't have many other options except reading. And I used to love to read this weekly news magazine called Time. In fact, I always used to think that I would work for Time magazine one day. Yeah. And the Indian equivalent was India Today. So I was in St. Stephen's College. I was doing English honours, which in a sense equips you for everything and equips you for nothing. And I think journalism is, in a sense, a microcosm of that. And I was very keen on applying for journalism. I had applied to India Today. And while I was waiting to hear, at that time they had a written test, I heard about NDTV. They were doing The World This Week. And they were working out of a basement in GK1. Yeah. And I went for an interview there. And I liked it so much, I never left.
I read about that interview with Radhika Roy. She mentioned that you aced the written exam. You were so good at it that you'll be too good to be there for NDTV. Something like that happened, isn't it?
No, so Radhika Roy, she's really my mentor. She's the person who interviewed me. Prannoy used to be the anchor, the face of it in a sense, and they're co-founders. So I always call NDTV actually as a startup. It was a startup. It was just, it had that same kind of mentality, the same ethos of a small team and really wanting to change the world. And I'm happy to say that I don't think that is so much that women only get ahead because of, you know, some kind of illicit relation. I think the belief is that women get ahead just because they're better than others.
Yeah. I think this myth that only men can play cricket, this has been, you know, clouding us since a long, long time.
I mean, you see now it's women in the armed forces, women in combat, women, I mean, you know, as police commissioners. I think every glass ceiling is being shattered. Yes. Very far.
Every domain, every field.
So I think, so that's been fantastic to see.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, what other changes have you noticed when we talk about journalism? Because you've literally lived in that field for 33 years. So,
you know, I think there's a pace and energy to journalism that is today that is great to see. In fact, I'm very excited when you look at digital journalism because you see there, you know, a lot of people just with one phone who manage to go out there and do the research and get in-depth stories, do long-form writing, which really is incredible. And I think I really would like to salute those people, because I've seen that sometimes even people in large organizations get bogged down by things like revenue issues, things like budgets, things on, like talk television. Debates has become something which is like so common on TV. But it's like that old phrase, talk is cheap. It's the easiest thing to do, to put people in a studio in Delhi or Mumbai and get them to talk to each other.
Correct.
What's hard is actually getting journalists out on the ground to talk about issues that actually affect 1.4 billion people. I mean, India is such a vast country. You can't decide the news agenda sitting in Delhi or Mumbai or the cities. And I think seeing the reporting that's coming in from different parts of India is really something which is very exciting. And I think digital and just the freedom of the phone has given people the independence to explore that. I think the problem is that often now that revenues and bottom lines and ad revenue especially is driving journalism into this, I mean, it's called TRPs, but a really toxic ratings race. And I think that's the big challenge that big media faces.
And ma'am, what do you think will be the influence of artificial intelligence in journalism?
I mean, it can be very dangerous. I was glad to read that the government is planning to put a kind of disclaimer of all videos that are made by AI, because that is going to be a huge issue, because as it is, credibility is one of the areas which Indian journalism has to really work on. And I think that if you're going to have AI, often, journalists will just make mistakes. And, with especially the sophisticated AI videos, it's almost impossible to tell what's real and what's not real, which is why it's even more important for journalists to be present at events, at places where things are happening, at the big speeches, and not just rely on videos.
Otherwise, people will not be able to relate to the story as well, if everything will be AI generated.
Yes, exactly. So this is why the importance of having journalists, for budget cuts, a lot of bureaus shut down. You don't have journalists in different parts of the country because it's too expensive. I think you will find that people will see that you need to have that, because you need that authenticity and that credibility which comes with humans as opposed to AI.
Yeah. And ma'am, do you agree that journalists are the face of the ruling party eventually?
I think the core of journalism is to be anti-establishment, whatever that establishment is. I think the fact that the 4 pillars of democracy and journalism is one of them means that each are the watchdog of each other, not just journalism, but I would say that even whether it's the judiciary, whether it's the executive, they have to balance each other out, not be in cahoots with each other in a sense. So I think that's something that journalism has to re-identify and look at. Anti-establishment doesn't mean only negative, but it means looking at holding up a mirror to what's going right and what's going wrong. And I think both are equally important.
Both are equally important. We generally hear about what's going right.
Well, I mean, you can have the two extremes. Yeah. And I think journalism has to find the balance. Good journalism has to find the balance between those. You have to tell the truth. Now, that truth can be positive or negative, but the truth is the truth. So I think that really is what the core focus of journalism needs to be.
Correct. And ma'am, you've covered such high pressure events like 26/11 attacks, Kandahar hijack. How did you control, balance your emotions while telling the public about what's really going on?
I think it's very important to remember that journalists are human too.
Of course.
I don't think there's anything wrong with being, in a sense, letting your emotions also be part of the story, but they can't overrule it. Yeah. So I think you have to report in a sense where you're balanced. You're giving the facts, and you're not letting your personal opinions intervene, but rather opinions. I think if you do have an emotion, that's all right, as long as it doesn't cloud judgment. I think judgment is very important for journalists, and to be sure to be able to present the facts in a credible way, in a way which informs your viewers, is really the key weapon of a journalist. So you can't let emotions overrule that at any point. It's difficult. I mean, there were a lot of stories. I mean, the Kandahar hijack was the first one where you saw, I think, families really got public government policy overturned. And dealing with that many years later, there are many questions raised on whether the government did the right thing or not. But at that time, I think there was no choice, because the emotions were running high, not just for the families, but for everyone who was watching those protests on television. So I think it had become, emotions had overtaken, in a sense, what perhaps the government would have liked to do. But there was no other choice at that time. I mean,
And ma'am, during the 26/11, were you in Bombay that time? Or?
no, I was in Delhi, but of course those were very long days and nights watching, and it was really, I mean, I think 26/11, a lot of mistakes were made in the coverage of that, again, because this is something that had never happened before. It was an event television journalism didn't know how to respond to in the way that there should have been the checks and balances in place. And I think even in that time, the governments didn't know what were the do's and don'ts. And I think a lot of mistakes were made then. I think the entire rule book, I mean, we sat and drafted. I was part of the News Broadcasters Ethics Association, completely redrafted how that coverage was done, because it was, I think live coverage is really something which is very detrimental in terms of a terror attack or in terms of any kind of similar situation.
So you suggest against it?
I think live coverage, absolutely not.
All right. What other mistakes, ma'am, are you referring to?
I think it was, I think basically it was that I feel that the live coverage perhaps gave away too many details of what the government's or the security agencies' response plans were. And I think the security agencies also, by speaking to the media, were, I mean, again, it wasn't anyone's fault. I think it was just that nobody knew what was happening at that time. So I think again
too much of chaos. It was obviously soul shaking.
So I think there are very strict guidelines now after that, which I think both the government, security agencies and the media have put in place to make sure that this kind of excess information.
Right.
I mean, of course, the challenges of today is not about any more established media. It's about anybody with a phone. So you may find that you may be beaten to it by, say, YouTube or X, where you have people just streaming live. But I think responsible media needs to take that call on the bigger issues at that time. It's the most important, paramount is the safety of individuals involved. So I think you can't let safety concerns be overridden by, getting the news first or by getting it out there to millions of people.
Must have been a battle, no ma'am? Getting the news first, getting the news out first.
Well, I think that at NDTV our focus was you have to get the news first, but you have to get the news right as well.
Right as well.
And I think I'm very happy that at least while I was editor, we had a few mistakes. Everyone's human, but we never had these, as you've seen, whether it was the Riya Chakrabarti case, whether it was many other cases. NDTV has never been pulled up for sensationalism, for getting it wrong, and for being maliciously wrong. I think the Riya Chakrabarti case is a textbook case of what you should not do. I mean, and again, I think this kind of craze of battling each other, competition for TRPs really does lead to extreme toxicity and damage in the system.
Yeah, that makes you impulsive, I guess.
I mean, it's a craze to be first in whatever. So you're not even looking at what you're putting out there, what you're doing, what the ramifications are. I think the implications of news coverage is also something we need to look at. And I think that's what really damaged the impression people have of media when you see them go into this kind of hunt mentality against people. And
so you think social media has really helped journalists to get the information, because everything is on the My Government page. Our Prime Minister is very social.
So I think social media, or I think digital, of course, always helps, because you're right. I mean, because of the RTI and because of various others, you can get information very easily. But I think it's also about building up your credibility, whether it's with government, whether it's with the viewers, whether it's with the public. Because I mean, in a sense, journalism is a public interest profession. So I think that's most important, but social media is very easy to manipulate. So I think you have to be careful that you don't fall into a manipulation system, whether it's videos that come out which are put wrong. You'll have one incident happening today which actually turned out to be an air crash of 5 years ago. So I think you need to be very, very careful on how genuine this is. And I think people expect that of media which is respected and established, that they don't just put anything out there. That you have to have that filter in place, you have to have that editorial filter to make sure that the news you put out is genuine.
In any which case, even if you put out a news which is not genuine, the truth will come out.
Yes.
You can't, hide the truth forever.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
So, ma'am, you've covered wars also, is it?
So, I was editor at the time of the Kargil war. So, I was in Delhi, but of course, our journalists were out there many of our journalists were out there covering the Kargil war. And I think that was really very, very traumatic time, because when you saw the courage of the young soldiers, I mean, they were all in their 20s, they're young soldiers ready to give up their life for their country. And also not just their courage, but the courage of their families who, sacrificed, in a sense, their young men. It was really something which reminded you of who the real heroes of India are. And I think that was an eye-opener also in terms of diplomacy and foreign policy, and because this came quite soon after various peace efforts were being made between India and Pakistan. But I think the courage of the young soldiers of Kargil is something which India remembers even today.
So, ma'am, how do you manage to stay positive when you cover such events? I mean, it is obviously taking a toll on your mental health also somewhere.
Of course, you feel depressed. There were many cases, the Jessica Lal case, the Arushi Talwar case. You do feel, of course, impacted as a human. But I think what journalism inspires you to do is that you always look for change. That that even when you cover a war or something, the belief is that by reporting this, people start looking for solutions. How can we work towards a world where there's less war? How can we work towards a world where there's, somebody, a powerful person can't just get away with doing anything he feels like. And I think the one thing that television journalism did was give a voice to the voiceless. I've seen that whether it's young girls in a remote village will take on a powerful person of their locality if they feel this thing, just because they have the backing of a mic or somebody who listen to their story. And I think television needs to remind themselves again and again that we're not the voice of the powerful, but the powerless. And I think that was when television started, or television media, that was really the change in the scales, because in more and more politicians started realizing that they're being watched by a camera as well. So what may be a local crime is no longer a local crime. It can have national ramifications. So I think that was really the changing force of television media.
And ma'am, when we talk about Jessica Lal case, I also interviewed Malini Ramani. She was an eyewitness to the murder. Why do you think he still got away when we all know the truth?
Well, in a sense, he didn't get away. He did serve his sentence. He was convicted once the case...
But do you think the punishment was harsh enough?
I think at that point, those are individual opinions. I think the point is, which was the point even from the beginning, the point is he has to face the law. So depending on the law, the fact that he was convicted, he was given a sentence, he served that sentence, I think the matter closes there. And I think even at that time, I think what the family felt was that justice should be done.
Yeah, now, but it took way too long.
Yeah, but the problem is that it took too long. There were a lot of, errors that happened on the way. We know how things were manipulated, and reports were changed. So I think the fact that justice was eventually done was the key message of the Jessica Lal story. And you'll find that today every case has a ripple effect. So when you see that in one case there is a conviction, then it's much more difficult for other cases to go ahead, so that there won't be more Jessica Lals. I mean, for the Nirbhaya case, for instance, though it is really horrifying that there is still so much crime against women, the fact that a tougher law came in after the Nirbhaya case, the fact that there is at least that awareness of what people go through, it's still taking way too long. There's still left to be done. Yeah, it's still too much, but at least the system is now more, in a sense, equipped to deal with it.
I think we're also standing up for our rights now.
Yeah, I said you will see that there is much more than there was earlier. Of course, it's a long, long way from perfect, but
at
things
least
changed.
Something.
Laws changed. Fast-track courts were set out. The point, the problem is still implementation, but at least laws changed. Things changed. That is something which is important, and we have to keep fighting. As I said, positive. You have to keep hoping that things will change even further.
Yeah. That is more important,
yes,
that we're doing something about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ma'am, you've won such great awards, Best Anchor, Best Editor-in-Chief. What do they mean to you even today when you look at those awards? What feelings do you get?
We recently moved house, and I have to say there was so much luggage we had to take, so I didn't take most of my awards. Really? Because I said, in a way you feel that it's more the memories than the actual award which is important. I mean, I think I said it earlier also. I think you have to treat each award with the excitement that as if it's your first award, and also the belief that this could be your last award. So so it's special in both ways. So it has to be about how excited you are about getting it and how special it is. And I think each one of them meant a lot to me. I mean, it was each
I
one
think it's very
represented a
motivating to
different,
do
yeah,
more.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. I said, though recently I got a Lifetime Achievement Award,
wow,
so
wow.
that's a good time to say, okay, now I can relax a bit. So that was nice.
So
All
you
of them were
said goodbye
special.
to NDTV after
I've said
33
goodbye.
years.
Yes.
How do you feel now? What has changed in your life?
Oh, no more deadlines. No more 24/7 pressure. So
More time for your family and yourself.
more time for my family and myself, a lot. But I have to say, I mean, being in NDTV was the greatest privilege of my life. It was one of my longest relationships. I haven't been married for 33 years, so it's longer than my marriage. So it was very, very special to me. And but I think I quit at the right time.
And now you're writing a new book.
I'm writing a book now on women in Indian politics, because they really have been the most fascinating story, I think, of my journalism career. And I never thought I would actually see the 33% women reservation go through. But it actually did in 23. And I'm most excited about seeing how that is going to change the face of Indian democracy.
And ma'am, I've read about your book also, Defining India. Tell me more about it. You've interviewed such great personalities, world leaders like Dalai Lama, and even actors, I guess, like Amir Khan.
Yeah, no, I think the book basically looks at 15 people, 15 icons of India, identifying what they thought are key moments of India and of modern Indian history. And it was really, I mean, interviewing His Holiness the Dalai Lama was really a wonderful experience. He really is like a living God.
Yeah.
And I remember when I had interviewed him over the years, and I remember when he walked into the room, there were all these young people from the Tibetan community, and they just started weeping when they saw him. And I think the fact that he represented so much to people, I mean, he represents their homeland, which they've never seen for these young people all born in India. And I think also he represents the greatness of India, because he thanks India for the fact that, in a sense, he's alive today, because he fled Chinese occupation when people were worried that he could be arrested or even killed. And I think that's the greatness of India, that we have provided home to so many different religions, different leaders, anyone who, in a sense, India has always been welcoming. And I think that really is the greatness of India. And I think he kind of summed up what I wanted to say in my book. And even in, I think I'd spoken to the former President Pranab Mukherjee also for that. And he talks about how India is not really a nation in a conventional sense, but a civilization.
Yeah.
And I think that's also very important for us to remember, that we're a civilization of thousands of years. So we obsess sometimes with the politics of tonight or today and what's happening, but you know, things pass and things get better.
It's a wonderful accumulation, you know, of perspectives from different kind of people. And that's really great.
Thank you.
You've interviewed Malala also, right? Malala.
Yes.
How was it with her?
Well, she was nice. She likes Bollywood. She's still, at that time, she's still a young girl in a sense, but she likes Bollywood. She likes Shah Rukh Khan. She likes cricket. So she had all the same, I think, interests as many other young people have. But I think, again, as somebody so young who's seen so much, I'm really glad that she's used her voice to talk about what is really one of the major issues is girls' education.
I think she was able to start the education in Afghanistan for women.
Yeah, in that area, in that province. And I said, look at what's happening to the Taliban. You know, so I think we have to realize that while we make progress, and in India we take many things for granted, we need to celebrate the fact that how far we've come and look at, see, and how we can actually spread those values to the world, and especially our neighbors.
Right. So, ma'am, what do you think is more important, earning fame or earning trust?
Trust.
Trust over fame.
I think you won't get fame without trust. I mean, any kind of fame you get will be very short-lived. I mean, you see influencers who come and go.
Yeah.
But I think once you lose trust, you lose fame. So it's
You'll eventually lose the fame.
Yeah.
Makes
So
sense.
it's kind of interconnected. But I think in life I've never looked for fame, and I don't think I am famous in that sense at all. I don't think young people today watch the news as they did. But I think I wanted to change the world. I think every young person should want to do that. That's why you should work. And I don't know if I've done that, but I think I managed to change what I was interested in doing. I mean, I think I managed to change journalism a little or make a contribution. Change is perhaps a too ambitious a word. And I think that's a very nice thing to be.
So, ma'am, what really was your vision when you joined NDTV?
I mean, you joined journalism because you wanted to change the world. You felt that you see things which you don't, there's injustice, you want to change it. I don't think you could, as I said, I don't think change the world, but I think stories have had an impact and really contributed, as I said, to whether it's laws, whether it was the Jessica Lal case, whether it was the Nirbhaya case, whether it was 26/11, the Kargil war. I think journalism shone a spotlight on what needed to change so things like that don't happen again. So, so I'm very glad that we didn't see another attack like 26/11 because intelligence and security realizes what the feelings were. So the main thing is that you don't just report a story sensationalism, but you report it to bring about change.
Of
and
course,
I think
to
that
bring a more awareness, to tell people what's really happening.
Yeah, and I think that is something I was very happy to contribute to.
Oh, Ma'am, your journey has been remarkable. You're just being too modest. What was that one moment when you felt most proud about yourself? Well,
I don't know if proud about myself is the right word, but
or about your work.
I think, I said, in fact, some of the stories we've covered, I think there have been 3 or 4 movies made on them. One was the Jessica Lal case, one was the Arushi Talwar case, and we've had many others. I think those which
Mumbai
used to
attacks also, so many movies have been made on them.
But I think some of the most have been when we've seen a justice crime. And I remember that when I just started, there was still case of starvation deaths being reported, and I think in Orissa. And I think our tracking of that and the impact of, like crops failing on farmers, I think that had a very big impact. State governments changed their regulations, the kind of compensation, and the kind of insurance they were giving. So I think those are the stories which are kind of away from the headlines in a sense, which had the most impact.
I think you sleep really well when you know that you're doing something for the society.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling.
I guess, I mean, it is, but I think it's more like you've done something which makes you a little bit satisfied. I said, I think those were really very much part of those. But we've had lots of moments. I remember when General Musharraf had come to Agra for the Peace Summit, then we managed to broadcast that live because he was saying some absolute incendiary things on how they back Pakistan-sponsored terrorism in Kashmir, and the summit was eventually called off. So I think that journalism definitely does bring a true picture, which I think otherwise was not clear.
But ma'am, when journalists like Rajiv Pratap lose their lives because of true journalism, what do you have to say on that?
No, it's absolutely horrifying. I think that's part of the problem, is that it's very hard to get, because jobs are shrinking, that people don't have the backing of an organization, and these people, which I made that point of digital media, are often just freelancers. So, so they don't have that kind of backing. I mean, that is really where you need the law to come down extremely hard. Not just law, but society. You need the local politicians. You need local police. I think the police are really crucial in this. You need every arm to do their job properly. Otherwise, what is the protection for journalists, and especially journalists who are not affiliated with a large organization?
Makes sense. I mean, there should be some sort of a law in place for their own protection.
No, absolutely. And I mean, journalists are just giving their lives for telling the truth or telling the story. So you have to make sure that can only happen if the criminal is hands in glove with the police. So you need to make sure that that is really, you need the police to do their job, for a journalist to do their job properly.
I think this is also something which makes us question the credibility, because if the journalists are at the risk of losing their lives for telling the truth, they will obviously feel demotivated to do this.
No, you'll find it, and you'll find that people don't want to really go into journalism anymore because they see it as a job with not very much return. And I think that is one. I mean, journalism has to be a passion, not just a profession.
Of course.
But you also have to ensure issues like safety before people will come into it. Yes.
For any profession.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, ma'am. So moving further, I read on your Twitter, there's a line, your mother walks beside you still. What does that mean to you? My mother passed away 2 years ago. In fact, when I got my Lifetime Achievement Award, she was in hospital. So I remember saying that she would have been the happiest and proudest. She really has been the biggest supporter of my journey. The person who would be up would watch my broadcast every night, regardless of any other invitation she had. So I think a mother can never be replaced, but I really do feel that she walks beside me and lives on. That is so beautiful.
In me and my daughters every day.
Yeah, I think being supported by your mother makes you feel truly empowered, because the way a mother can support you, I don't think anybody else can. That is so unconditional.
No, they say no, behind every successful man is a woman, and also behind every successful woman is a woman. And in
Yes.
this case, you of course an understanding husband, but of course your mother, because I remember when I had my first baby, I wanted to quit at that time. And my mother said, there's no question if you're quitting, I'll look after her. And my bosses at work, Pradhan and Radhika, said, no, we'll set up a creche. So without that kind of support,
That is
you
so
find it
nice.
very hard for women to get forward. So I couldn't have been where I am today without my mother's help in
And even your organization
and of course,
helping you is really, really nice.
yes, we set up the creche and it was very nice, and we had 6 months maternity leave because of Radhika. Was very, very clear that she wanted to support women. In fact, we were completely gender blind in hires, and in our newsroom we used to have more women than men just because the women candidates were better.
Yeah.
So then you realize that as you got older, we started off very young, that you needed to make sure that you had equal conditions which gave women equal opportunity. So we had 6 months maternity leave, first in the industry, much before the government made it law. And I think that's why you had so many fantastic women at NDTV.
I think that is so amazing and liberating to know. I think you're the first person who's mentioned this.
Yeah.
Getting maternity leave even before the government made it a law, which is
Yeah.
really nice.
And our creche is for mothers and fathers. So even the men at NDTV could leave their children at the creche, because the whole point is it's about equal. It's not about women versus men, but it's about giving them equal opportunities.
Yeah.
So even men can take paternity leave. So that's really crucial, that you make sure that the conditions are not that one side feels favored over the other, but it's just that you give them an equal playing field, a level playing field.
And the founders of NDTV are very forward thinking.
Absolutely.
So that really helps the people who are working for NDTV grow in life.
Yes, yes.
So ma'am, if today a young girl comes up to you and says, I want to be a journalist like you, what advice would you give her?
I'd say be very stubborn.
Yeah.
Be very stubborn and always keep asking questions. I think they used to tease me at work and call me "but why," because I always used to I'd get an answer and I'd ask one more question. So I think you have to keep asking questions, be very stubborn, and as I said, work harder than everyone else. I don't think you can ask for special favors or conditions, but I think hard work, determination, and talent and lots of luck is really needed. I think mentors are very important. I was very lucky to have some fantastic mentors. So I think mentorship, I think mentorship is extremely important. And also I think you have to realize in journalism, it's not a 9-to-5 job. It really is something that
Round
you
the
should be,
clock.
that you should love doing. So
Yeah.
you don't feel like you're working, but you feel that it's such a privilege to be doing your passion.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I tell young people today, that, follow your passions. And journalism is absolutely fantastic passion
Yeah.
to have.
Who were your mentors, ma'am, if you don't mind mentioning?
So Prannoy and Radhika were, of course, my mentors. A former Supreme Court Chief Justice, Justice Verma, was very kind also.
Oh, nice.
Yes, to be my mentor. My mother, of course. My husband was fantastic. A sounding board, I suppose, more than a mentor. But I was very lucky to have
Ma'am,
these
with your
people.
husband, you've seen both politics and journalism you've lived journalism, but you've seen politics also very closely.
Yes.
So do you think there is some sort of correlation or, I don't know, some sort of dependency that they have on each other?
Well, I guess I don't want to call myself his watchdog, but I think one thing in politics and journalism is we never agree on the professional part,
Yeah.
but on the personal part we do absolutely. But I think it's you find very rare politicians and journalists who agree on things.
Yeah.
So that's about
Ma'am,
it.
these heated debates, are they all scripted by any chance, which we see?
No, they're not really scripted. They're not scripted. I know that people are very cynical about it.
Yeah.
And I know that as perhaps some debates are engineered to be louder than they would actually be. But I think politicians are also very smart at performing for the camera.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's not scripted in the core of it or the content, but I think the tone, the tenor, the kind
That
of
is-
shouting
yes.
is a bit, it's become a bit like...
Because it does seem unreal sometimes.
Yeah, it's become a bit like bad entertainment. And but I think it's often, people have a choice. The more viewers watch this rubbish, the more they'll get of it.
Yeah.
So I think if viewers are more discerning, you'll find the television will also automatically change.
Yes.
It's kind of a catch-22 situation.
Correct, makes sense. So ma'am, before we conclude, I have a small rapid fire.
Okay.
One story that changed your life.
I think the Kargil war did change my life. It made you realize what true courage is, and it made you realize also what sacrifice is. So I think in terms of as a person, the Kargil war really changed me.
And I think you start valuing life and see life from a different perspective also.
Absolutely. No, you realize that life is more about than your bubble.
Correct.
So I think the Kargil war really changed me.
One guest that surprised you?
Shah Rukh Khan.
Really?
Always, because he's way more intelligent than people expect actors to be.
Yeah.
So he is somebody who's always surprises you, because he's always his mind is working 24/7. Also, that his interviews always happen after midnight. So it's I think he functions better at night. So I think I've interviewed him 3 or 4 times, and I don't think any are before 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, really?
But he's he's somebody I admire just because of his intelligence and his hard work and his work ethic. So I wish him all the best for his 60th birthday.
You know, he said something on camera which really touched me. He said, you know, when you hear people saying negative about you, and if you're around, just give them a polite smile and move away from that. Don't try to, you know, have a argument or something. You cannot change their perspective. If they feel that you are someone who's bad, then you are bad for them. Don't try to make them think in any other way.
No, he's extremely, he's really, I think, a success story of hard work and brilliance. And
Hey, he's a self-made.
yes, and I think that's really, and as I said, very intelligent, very thinking individual. So did surprise in that sense. And of course, he's a great superstar.
Yes, he is. One mistake that taught you everything.
I think 26/11. I think I wasn't there covering it, but I think it taught everyone in journalism a lot on what needs to be done in a situation like that. So I think 26/11 changed the journalism guidelines as well.
One word that defines you?
I would hope to say authentic and credible.
That is true, ma'am. And one dream that you still chase?
I think God has been very kind. I think one thing I've learned in life is to be content, and I think God has given me more than I ever dreamt of. So,
That is nice,
so I think I'm chasing now the children's dream. So
I think we as humans have forgotten to live in the present. We are always thinking about what is next.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to live the moment and cherish what you already have.
No, I said, I think you sum up really grateful. I'm a very grateful stage in my life.
Yeah, that is so nice. I'm looking forward to the new book
Thank you.
and wishing you all the best for it.
Thank you, Smriti. Thank you for taking the time to come and talk to me.
It's an honor for me.
Not at all.
No, honestly, I had a lovely conversation with you and you're very kind and generous. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.